Hi, my name's Karen O'Connor and welcome to this episode of the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, today I'm talking again to Victoria Jennings. We spoke a few weeks ago about our education system and entrepreneurialism and how to encourage creativity in our school system and also in our society. Today I'm talking to her about a completely different topic, and that's the topic of twin flames. This is where one person has split into two parts. This sounds really woo-woo, right? Just go with it. One person has split into two parts and they're living two separate lives to try to learn the lessons that they need to learn quicker. It's a fascinating discussion and Victoria's experiences in this are so interesting. Enjoy this podcast.
So when are you going over to the States?
Oh, when we can. I'm supposed to be there now. It's giving me time. It's giving me time to do other things, and I'm writing a book as well. I'm writing a book about the love of my life and all of that and what happened. And it's a big love story. It is a really big love story, and it's about twin flames. Have you heard the term twin flames? Okay.
No.
Well, that's what I believe we are, and past lives have been shown to me. And the place that we actually rented in California was a place that we built in the 1920s. So it was actually when we went to that place, all this stuff was revealed to me, like visions and all sorts of stuff. So very interesting. It's a hell of a story.
Okay, so do you want to have a podcast about that or not? I can understand if you don't, but I'm more than happy. Yeah, that's like, oh, I need to talk about that.
Yeah, something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and it taught me so much about myself. It really did, and self-love and all of that. And so, yeah, it's been a hell of a journey.
But you're not together now.
We're not together, but we're talking again. So we keep trying to be together, but we trigger each other so badly, and that's what twin flames do. They trigger each other for healing, but when you don't know that that's what's going on, you get into the triggers and it becomes very dysfunctional, it becomes very toxic, and it's not a healthy environment. So you have to part. But now it's really interesting because now we're starting to talk again. We're starting to, and now we know a lot more than we did. When the triggers come up, we say, hey, oh, that's triggering me. And then we go into ourselves. Why is it triggered? Because it's something to do with us, not them. It's never about them. Why is that being triggered? Where is that coming from? And then we go through a process, and we're both doing that now. Or he'll say, you're projecting again. And now normally that would be a spiral down, right? But now I'll say, oh, thanks for that. I'll have a look at that. And it stops. So it's very good. We're in a very interesting place at the moment. But we're 7,000 miles apart, so we can't kill each other anymore. It can get to that point. I can understand how that could happen. But we love each other. We love each other deeply. But this stuff, this triggering that comes up, you just can't be together while that's going on. It's really cool. Every twin flame I know, every twin flame couple I know that are together all went through this. All of them did. The masculines were all of them were what we would call narcissists. But they've recovered. So it's really interesting.
Can I ask you a question? And you might find this really rude. Are you the masculine or the feminine in that relationship?
I don't find that rude at all. I'm very masculine. And he's very feminine. But he is able to put me into my feminine, and I am able to put him into his masculine. So the idea of this is to balance it out. Now, the reason he's very feminine is because of the way he was brought up and the issues that he has, and the reason I'm very masculine is because of the way I was brought up and the issues that I have. And our issues mirror each other. So it's all about mirroring. A twin flame is supposed to be one soul that divides into two entities, two humans. One holds the masculine, one holds the feminine. And then you do the dance to balance everything out to 0 point. And when everything's balanced to 0 point, you can be together. Pretty amazing. So he's 27 years younger than me as well. And in the past life, I was 30 years younger than him. So this lifetime, we've switched it around. Really interesting stuff. Really, really interesting. How we met was, you know, a voice told me where to go. And I've never heard that voice since. It wasn't my voice. And it was persistent. And I wouldn't have met him if I didn't go there.
Where were you?
Noosa, believe it or not. And this voice was saying, I was going to write a workshop, a new workshop, and I love to get to the ocean. I'm very creative around the ocean. So I usually go to Byron Bay. Like, that's a long way from Noosa, right? I usually would head to Byron.
Opposite direction.
But this voice kept saying, go to Noosa. And I was having a fight with the voice. I'm not going to Noosa. I never go to Noosa. I'm going to Byron. Go to Noosa. I'm going to Byron. And then it just went, go to Noosa, go to Noosa, go to Noosa, go to Noosa. Shut up. Okay, I'll go to Noosa. So I went to Noosa and I met him on day 2. And a friend of mine rang me out of the blue. We would normally catch up once a month for dinner here in Brisbane. And he rang me out of the blue, asked me where I was, told him I was in Noosa. He said, I'm coming up to Nambour tomorrow. We can have lunch. And it was so out of not what we do. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And he came up, he chose the restaurant, and the fellow that I was supposed to meet was waiting tables in that restaurant. He was only there for 4 weeks because his mate had hurt his foot, and he was holding his mate's job for him. So he did it for 4 weeks while his foot was healing. And he's an artist, and he was also at that point acting. And so we met, got on straight away like a house on fire, and he asked me to go and see him in the play. He was playing action in West Side Story. And I thought, yeah, I'm not going to go. But the friend that was with me gave him my business card before we left the restaurant. I would never have done that. And then on the Monday, he rang me at work asking me to come and see West Side Story, see him in West Side Story. And so I did. And my whole life changed. It's amazing. And 3 weeks after that, he moved to Brisbane. So it was like this whirlwind of recognising each other and knowing each other and just knowing that we should be together. It was so weird. But anyway, it's a hell of a story. Stuff you can't make up. You know.
In like what?
So I went to see West Side Story. I went to watch it. I was in the front row, and there was this moment where he's gorgeous looking, like he used to model and everything. He's just most handsome man I've ever met. Anyway, and he's in the front row, front of stage, and he broke character and looked straight into my eyes and just smiled at me. And I fell in love. Lost like that. I was in love. That was the moment. It's like this soul recognition when our eyes met. So anyway, then we met after the play to have a drink, and I couldn't talk to him. I was like a 14-year-old teeny bopper. I'd lost the ability to speak. And I'm like, Anyway, he asked me to have a drink with him. I don't know why, because I was hopeless. I was a mess. So he was going back home to have a shower, and then he was going to meet me at this place at Sales. So I went there and I met him and had a drink. And then it was great because the alcohol was freeing up my tongue. So I could start to make sense. And anyway, so we had drinks, and then he said, would you like to have dinner? He took me to this beautiful romantic restaurant, and it was so funny because I had the bio of him in front, and I said, you're only young. And because the bio said he was 27. I thought he might have been about 32 or something. No, 27. Anyway, and he said, no, they made a mistake. And I thinking, oh, good, cool. He said, I'm 28. Great. Makes a big difference. Anyway, so we had dinner and he picked everything on the menu and he picked the wine and it was just, gorgeous. We stayed there till about 11 p.m. and then he asked me if I'd like to have a walk on the beach. And I'm like, okay. So we went for a walk on the beach and he put his arm around me and my whole body quivered and shook like I've never had that experience before. It was almost like an out-of-body experience. And I pulled away because I didn't want him to feel the effect that he was having on me. And he's walking me back to my apartments. And then he said to me, I've never been inside these apartments. I thought, I know he works. I know he's in a play. I think I'll be pretty safe. So I invited him up. Anyway, I'll just say, he made this bit of a comment. He said, how long since you've been in a relationship? And I said, 4 years. And he said, 4 years since you've been held in a man's arms? And I said, yeah. And he said, stand up. And he made me stand up, and then he just held me in his arms. Oh, he's so beautiful. So, so beautiful. So anyway, one thing led to another, and he stayed the night. And I thought, so I drove home from Noosa and, you know, the sky was blue and the clouds were pink and the birds were singing more beautifully and it was just, I was on this high and I thought I'd never see him again, that would be it, you know, but then the texting started and then the phone calls and then we just didn't want to be apart. We just wanted to hang out. And so he came to Brisbane. He came and did my course around talent dynamics. Then I offered him a job as a salesperson and I really did that so we'd have an excuse to hang out together. I don't think we really did much selling. And, my boys did an intervention on me. Like, what are you doing? You crazy? Blah, blah, blah. Because he's 3 years older than my eldest son.
So how old were you at this point? He was 28. It
was 6 years ago. It was 2013, September 2013 we met. The 22nd of September 2013.
So you were 55 at this point.
Yeah. He brought me back to life. I was at a time where I really didn't want to be on the planet anymore. And I'd put on so much weight and I just had nothing to live for. This is after divorces and, you know, all that stuff.
And kids growing up and leaving home and you kind of lose a purpose, don't you?
Like there was nothing. I'd achieved what I'd wanted to achieve and I didn't have any goals, you know what I mean? Like I was comfortable with the business and all that and I didn't have any vision or any desire to do anything really. And he came along at that point and turned my world upside down. And, like, he really romanced me and, I had all these experiences that I would not have normally had. And he's very outgoing, being a star profile. So we met everybody. It was just so much fun. It was so much fun. Anyway, then he had to go back to the States. And so I said, why don't we take the business to California, which is his home. And that's what we did. And then he found this estate, oh, my God, called the Cats Estate, which is in Los Gatos, which means the cats. He found it like he was going down to Santa Cruz for a drive. This is what I mean about all the synchronicities and everything that happens with this story. So he's going down to Santa Cruz. He sees a bar on the way, decides to have a counter lunch. He walks in there and there's a guy sitting next to him, he doesn't know, is the owner of the Cats Estate. And he also owns the restaurant, the Cats Restaurant. And they're having this conversation. Anyway, and he asks what he's doing there. And so he says, we're setting up a business here and we want to run retreats and blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for a place of where we can hold all this. And this guy's name's Mark, and Mark said, "Oh, I've actually just finished refurbing a place up the mountain just behind us here, and it's for rent. Would you like to see it? It's on 75 acres. It's got waterfalls, blah, blah, all the elements, so water, fire, earth, wood, steel, it's all there, right?" So the place is called the Gatehouse, and the school that we were going to build, which we already knew the name of, was called the Dynamic Gateway School. So this house is called the Gatehouse. Yeah, anyway. So has a look, and he falls in love with the property. He's just, the energy is just perfect. We can run retreats here. We can do workshops. We can do blah, 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 blah. And then I look at the history of it, and it was built in the 1920s by Erskine and Sarah, and they had a wonderful story. And Charlie Chaplin used to visit there. There was a castle as well. So the Gatehouse was outside the castle, and Mark lived in the castle. But they built all of this, Erskine and Sarah. So she was a poet and he was a lawyer, and they were 30 years difference with them, and they'd both been in marriages and met each other, fell in love, and they left there, and there was no such thing as divorce. She was married to a pastor, a clergyman, and he was married to a Catholic. You couldn't divorce in those days, so they lived in sin, and the only people that would accept them were the Bohemians. And I also found out they had an art college they'd started in San Francisco. And I was attracted to this place every day to meditate when I was there. And I found out later that Erskine's ashes had been spread in the olive grove just in front of where I used to meditate every day. So it came to pass that had been one of our past lives. And the twin flame, I talked about twin flames before, that we thought we were twin flames. There's a 30-foot mural on the back of the castle. It's a masculine and a feminine, and the tree of life and all this other symbology, night and day, yin and yang, all of the stuff, and they're holding a flame in their hands between them. So they were twin flames. And I didn't know what twin flames were, and all of a sudden on YouTube, twin flame pops up and tells me what it is, and I'm like, that's what's going on with us. That's exactly what's happening here. And I had visions where I would morph into the 1920s, and I would be there and hear the conversations, and it was a very surreal experience. So we believe we are them come back. And we had another experience in San Francisco where we had at the same time we had a vision of us both being in France in the 1700s. So we were listening to Beethoven. We're in the front row, and I looked over while this piece of music was playing. I looked over at he had a different face, and he had a ponytail, and he was in cream and gold, like 17th century France,
brocade
dress.
Kind of
brocade,
thing, yep.
Yeah, all that, the flounces and everything. And at exactly the same time, he reached over to me, grabbed my hand, squeezed it, and held it really, really tight. And we couldn't talk because we were in the front row, so we had to wait till the music stopped. And I said to him, "What happened when you grabbed my hand at that moment?" And he said, "I looked over at you and you had really high hair and you were in a cream and gold gown." So we had the same vision at the same time when this music was playing of another life that we'd obviously had together. And after I had that experience, I went to a clairvoyant and I told her about it. And she said, "Yeah, you were a couple in the 1700s in France, and you were young and you were just married, and he died tragically early, and you mourned him for 30 years. This 30-year thing keeps coming up all the time. You mourned him for 30 years. You never remarried. You mourned him until you died, basically. And you didn't die till 30 years later." And I had a dream one night, and I saw him riding a horse, falling off a horse and breaking his neck. And I think that was that time, right? So all this stuff happens. And when we first met, he kept saying to me, "Relax, I'm not going anywhere. Relax, I'm not going anywhere." And when they were married, the people that were at the Katz estate, when they were married, she had 30 years on her own because he was 30 years older and he died 30 years before she did and all this. So this 30-year thing keeps coming up all the time. It's very interesting.
Did all this start when you moved into the gatehouse, or did it start before? Yeah, no, it was when you moved in.
When we moved into the gatehouse, all this stuff started to come to me. And, look, there's so much that used to happen. We had weird events used to happen there too. Weird things would happen, explaining things. But I also found eventually it was like I would do research online and some things would be given to me, and then I'd do research online and new things would show up that weren't on the original search. Like, it was really weird. So it was like things were given to me as I could handle them, as I could accept them. And I came across a transcript of hers before she died. She was interviewed before she died. And it's a 725-page transcript. And I started reading it. And I wasn't reading it. I was remembering everything. So there's a part in there, her 14-year-old son was killed at her hand in a car accident. And it was like, this cars are very new. It was an open car, like the back was all open, and he was sitting in the back. And it went down a cliff sort of thing, a side of a mountain, and it rolled on top of him. And she was stuck under the steering wheel and couldn't get out. Erskine had to get out and get help. He had to get up the top of the mountain to get help. He couldn't move it on his own. And the boy died. Well, as I was reading that, I could hear the gurgling of his lungs. His lungs must have been crushed under it, and I could hear him drowning in his own blood. Now, that wasn't in the transcript, but I knew, and I could hear it. So that had a terrible effect on her, that she had a nervous breakdown over that, as you could imagine. So there were things like that. As I was reading it, it was me, and I could fill in blanks. Like, how could you fill in blanks that weren't there? I know that sounds very woo-woo, but it's a very woo-woo thing. So the book that I want to write about experience, I kept a journal all through this period of my life. And so I want to write about the 3 different lives, and, of course, I will make up things about that. It'll be fiction. I'll make up things about that as well, obviously. It would make a great movie. I think it'd make a fantastic movie. So there's 3 lives that I know about. I also know we've had another life in Egypt as well. I had visions about that as well. So we go back a really long way. But I want to write about the main 3 and interweave, go into the different time periods and then where we are now and what's happening here now. And in the France lifetime, we were the same age. We were very similar ages, so it was just very different. He was an artist back then too. So funny. So this artist thing keeps coming out, and it's funny because Erskine, in the memoirs that I wrote, the transcript I read about him, he said if he comes back in another lifetime, he wants to be an artist full time because he used to paint as well, and is an artist full time this lifetime. So, I mean, it's a bit strange, don't you think?
You were talking earlier about timeline stuff. What's the timeline?
Well, if you believe in what Einstein believed, everything's happening at the same time. So for me, timelines are doorways. You can just walk through a doorway. And I think that's what we did in San Francisco. We both walked through a doorway at exactly the same time. So that life is actually happening now. It's weird. And so is Erskine and Sarah. That's happening now too. And so is I now, and God knows future, I don't know. It's probably happening as well. Who knows? The 1920s, early 1920s was Erskine and Sarah. And that's the other thing. I told you before that the twin flames is about mirroring. Well, he and I even mirror our year of birth because I was born in 58 and he was born in 85. So goes on and on and on and on. But the connection between us, it's a spiritual connection. It's not like a normal romance. It's nothing like that, because it's about soul growth. It's also about healing for the planet as well, and healing templates, changing templates. And Twin Flames have a mission. Our mission was about schools. And so there's a lot more to it than just meets the eye. So because it's a spiritual connection, it's very, very, very strong, and you have telepathy between you. So even when you're not together, you can talk to each other so easily, because this cord is so strong. Normally you're born on different sides of the world and you have to find each other, and there's usually racial differences or age differences, or there's always a challenge to overcome for your love, to see if your love can overcome those challenges. And so, yeah, I mean, because it's so spiritual, it never leaves you. So I got divorced, and, yeah, it was a shitty time for a little while, but you get over it. You move on. I don't think about him at all anymore. With your twin, you cannot not think about them, and all day, like at various parts of the day. It's not as bad as it used to be now, but it's still there. And you dream about them at night, and they come and talk to you in your dreams and all this sort of stuff. It's not something you ever get over, because they are you and you are them. Your soul is the same person, the same entity. You're just in two bodies split. And it's about yin and yang. So one of you holds the yin, one of you holds the yang, more of that. And it's not something you ever get over. It's not something that you can, it's like not a soulmate, and I believe in soulmates too. A soulmate you can get over. Like might take 3 months, but you'll be through it and over it, and you won't think about them anymore, You might occasionally, something might come up and that might throw a memory back, but that's it. But it's not this constant presence. And a twin flame is a constant presence, and you want to switch it off. Oh, my God, how you want to switch it off, but nothing you do can switch it off. Nothing. Because he's always there. He's a part of me. It's very annoying. It's extremely annoying. It's the same for him. He said to me the other day that he still dreams about me. He's been with other women, but he still dreams about me. So that connection is still there. And then we have this thing that, we both go to phone each other at the same time. Or I'll go on Instagram, and the moment I go on Instagram, he just sent me a message. Like all these synchronicities still happen. And when we were together, they were heightened. They were just so bad. And we didn't want to ever be separated. We just want to be together all the time, And he would get on Skype at night time, and it would be daytime here. And he'd say, just stay with me till I fall asleep. So I'd be on Skype and he'd say he could fall asleep. Things like that. We'd have dates on Skype. We'd share a meal and share a glass of wine over Skype and things like that. But when I was over there, he wasn't allowed to come here for 3 years. He overstayed his visa. He got into big trouble. He didn't realise he did, but he overstayed it by a month. So he was banned for 3 years. So I had to keep going over there. He couldn't come here. I would go over there and we would just want to hang together. We didn't want to do any work. We just wanted to hang out. He would hold me on the couch for 6 hours. We'd just be holding each other. It was really beautiful. It was just a connection like no other connection. Yeah, and we're still connected.
Why did you break up, and what's next from here on in?
The triggering of all of the wounds. So I've got a lot of wounds around father and a lot of wounds around mother, and he brought up every one of them to be healed. So my father left my mother for 6 months, and he didn't talk to me the whole time. He left her for another woman. So I recreated that he would leave me for another woman to be healed. But we didn't know that. We didn't know that that's what was happening and that's what was going on, and played it out beautifully so that it could be healed. And I've spent 3 years in counselling, working on myself, working on self-love, working on healing, all of that. And anyway, while Dad was away, and I didn't know this, my mother forbid him from contacting me unless he came back to her. So she used me as a pawn, and I had no idea. So I thought Daddy didn't love me anymore. I was 12, and I idolised my father. I was the only child. And so I thought Daddy didn't love me anymore. So that was a huge wound, massive wound. And Dad didn't tell me. He came back because he came back for me. But I didn't know that, and I punished him for the rest of the time. I punished him because I was so angry and so upset and so hurt. And when I was 21, he told me what Mum had done. And he didn't tell me until I grew up because he didn't want me to look at my mother differently. That's how much he loved me. So my twin would bring up all of that pain to be resurfaced, to be cleared, and put love into it. But we didn't know that. So instead of letting it come up and healing it and doing whatever I needed to do for myself, we would act it out with each other. And all of his wounds we would act out too, because he had a terrible childhood. He had a shocking childhood, so he has a lot of wounds as well. And I would bring up all that, and he's got mother wounds, and I would bring them up. And so, yeah, it was a hot mess. It was just a really hot mess. Just crazy stuff would happen, and we would get into such really bad arguments. Like nothing ever physical, but really bad arguments. And you know, I packed his bag one day and put it outside the door and told him to get out. This is in California. And he got really angry, so he threw it down the waterfall. And then he broke into the house at 2 a.m. and bounces on the bed like a puppy dog and says, well, I'm back. What are you going to do about it? We make up. Anyway, this particular time he's supposed to go to the gym. He goes to the gym every morning. And I packed his favourite gym shoes. And I put all his favourite things in the bag that I packed to send him on his way. So all his favourite stuff. So his favourite gym shoes are in there. He said, where are my shoes? Where are my gym shoes? I said, oh, they're in the bag. He said, oh, shit, they're down the bloody waterfall. So he had to scurry down the waterfall to get the bag. It was still in one piece, thank God, and got all his clothes back. That's the sort of stuff that would happen. Like, we would get so angry with each other, so angry, but it was anger directed out, but it was very verbal. It was very damaging verbally, very emotional. We just couldn't continue.
So how long ago was that?
That was, it all broke up about 2016 really badly, and then 2018 we tried to get back together again. So I went over to Hollywood and he met me there, and I wrote the book with Jack Canfield, and we had the launch of it in red carpet launch in Hollywood. It was awesome. The book's called Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield, and it had a great time. And then he said we wanted to try again, so he also came back with me here to Australia for 3 months. We nearly killed each other again. Same stuff. Just really bad. And I kicked him out, and I kicked him out, and I kicked him out. Anyway, I kicked him out for the last time. I didn't even go to the airport to say goodbye. But I know when the plane left, because I felt my heart being pulled out of my chest. And it would have been just as the plane was leaving Australia. That it's so incredible. Our hearts would sink together. So they'd beat at the same time. And if I got upset and angry, my heart rate goes up. I got high blood pressure, right? So my heart rate goes up, and he would say, hey, get that heartbeat down right now. I can't handle it. Because his heart would go up too. Like, seriously, that's the connection. And that could happen 7,000 miles apart. If my heart rate goes up, he can feel it.
So where to from here? What's happening now?
Don't know. I don't know. He's just broken up with somebody, probably number 532. He has a lot of relationships. and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm open to whatever might happen. I'm just so grateful at the moment that we're able to communicate without exploding. We're finally back to the beginning, if that makes sense. It's not the boyfriend-girlfriend lover thing. It's just friends at the moment. But at least we can have that. And I'm grateful if that's all we have. I'm very, very grateful for that. And that will be okay. So I'm not putting any... If I could wave a magic wand, yes, I want to be with him. Does it make sense? None at all. We are totally opposite to each other. He is so creative. He's very, very creative, but so much so that he's really not on earth plane. He's very immature in lots of ways, and then he's really, really wise in other ways and beyond his years. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. And the age difference is a big thing. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for him too. It wasn't originally, but it has become so. And he's always trying to find me in a younger version of me. And of course he can't. And he admits that. No one's like you. No, that's true. And I don't want to find anyone else. I'm happy and I'm grateful for having what I've had. Really grateful, because some people never, ever get to experience that. And I can say that I have, and I've got a hell of a story to tell, and it'll keep me warm in my old years. Yeah, it'll give me a warm feeling. So I'm very blessed. And I'm very blessed now that he's here. But yes, if I could wave a magic wand, we would be together. Definitely, without question.
Jack Canfield, you never mentioned that. When did you write a book with Jack Canfield?
In 2017.
And what was it? How did you meet Jack Canfield? Through the Roger Hamilton stuff?
No, I didn't meet him. I did it through publishers, and I was able to do a chapter in Jack Canfield's book. And I met Jack, and he interviewed me, and we had this big celebration, and I won an award. It's a bestseller. Yeah, it's called Mastering the Art of Success, and I talk about the teams and how to work with the teams in it. So it's going on from the success principles that Jack Canfield wrote. And, of course, he wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul series and all of those things as well. So that's how that happened.
Whoa, you kept that one quiet. And so when is this next book come out?
I don't know about this next one. This is going to be a labour of love. So I don't know. It's all there, and I've got this transcript, so I can use a lot of the stuff for the Sarah and Erskine part of it. I'm doing it from a healing perspective. I'd say a year. You'll probably see it in a year, and I think it'd make a fantastic film. So I'd love to make a film out of it. It would be awesome. So thank you for that. No one's ever done that. I've never talked about the twin flame with anyone. You. Yeah, not to go into a podcast, that's for sure. I normally only talk to other twins because they get it, they understand. It's a very different concept. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I got your reluctance, and I thought, no, this sounds really interesting. I'm not letting you go now. I'll just stay here. So thank you. Thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. And do you know what was really amazing? Your voice completely changed between the two topics. Totally changed. Yeah.
One was probably masculine, one was probably more feminine.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah. So the second half, it's been very soft and gentle, and all the kindness has come out, whereas the first half, it was, this is the what's so. This is how it is.
Yeah.
It was
that would be right. It's interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you so much. That was really cool.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Come and join us in our new Facebook group, the Menopause, Marriage and Motherhood group, where we'll discuss what happened in this podcast and all the other things that have got to do with midlife. I'll see you there.